Good morning.
We're on. We're live.
So today is November 15th, 2020, and our title today is
We're ready for prime time, just in case you didn't know.
Freeing Yourself from Emotional Bondage.
Yeah, we're having to have everything on
Freeing
the tip
Yourself.
of your tongue. As you get older, the tip of your tongue gets shorter.
So I'm going to start with an opening spiritual mind treatment.
Thank you.
So we take a deep breath in, close our eyes, and go within where we know the source of our being. And we know that source to be spirit, God, infinite intelligence, universal love. It is the power of the universe operating as each one of us, and it is the true source and essence of our being. So we know today that as human beings, we have been given the gift of a brain that manages and controls our thoughts and our feelings. And we know that these are a bonus and a gift for us for experiencing this thing we call life as a human being. And we also know that our emotions can be great mysteries to us and can confuse us and intrigue us and bewilder us. And so today we discuss and clarify our emotions and how they are for us, not against us, and how we do not deny them. We accept them as part of our unique experience, our unique individuality, and all of them are for us. And so, as we learn to use them for our highest good, our lives become more harmonious, more joyous, and more real. So we give thanks for this opportunity to explore them, to understand them, and to use them. We release, and together we say,
And
and
so it
so it is.
is. I want to step back into Judith and my time together in the morning as we have our coffee together. And we were talking about our talk today. And initially, it looked like we were going to talk about the bondage of negative feelings, how we're often trapped by the negative feelings in our negative past. And the longer we talked about it, the more, at least I realized, and I think Judith and I both thought together, that what's really holding us in bondage often is not negative feelings, but the pursuit of positive feelings. I want more of that. I need to feel good. And the need to feel good overwhelms logic, overwhelms reason, and overwhelms something that I think today we're going to talk more about, which is the spiritual and mental architecture of the world we live in that allows us to have the experiences that we would like and can savor and can repeat. What I think is happening to us very often is that we're being dragged by the desire to have a feeling rather than the conditions that we've created that allow or don't allow those feelings to occur. And an example of that I can think of is that you're sitting in your living room, and hopefully you have one, and you're too hot. And so you can cover yourself up or you can take something off. Or you could also then look at the architecture of your environment and say, do I need to change the thermostat? Do I need to change the temperature in the room, the condition that I'm in? And can I do that? More often than not, we don't look at changing the condition. We simply look at the quickest fix to continue to have the feeling that we want or to get more of that.
Okay, and so if we move the feeling from a sensation, which is what I think hot or cold is, to a feeling, give another example of that. A feeling of wanting to feel good.
Well,
An emotion is the word I'm looking for.
yeah, we can feel, I feel good when I think about your answering to that question rather than me. I wasn't ready for
Oh, you weren't ready for that.
that. I was like,
Oh,
okay, yeah,
oh well, I'll do it then. I'll do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah. That's okay.
Okay, so an emotion would be mad, glad,
Yeah,
sad.
I know that, but
Well,
yeah,
I know, but I'm
yeah.
clarifying. An emotion or feeling, what I call feelings, but a lot of people call sensations feelings, like, how you're hot or cold, or um, but an emotion is mad, glad, sad, guilty, or afraid. So they
Mhm.
really can go down to those five. I always look at my hand. And of course, there are lots of variations on those, but those are the basic ones. So when we say feel good, we mean feel happy. We say feel bad, we might mean feel sad or feel afraid or feel guilty. And we often label those negative or positive feelings. And I hate those terms, but when we want try to group them together, I hate those terms because all emotions are good and all emotions are for you,
Mhm.
but they don't feel like it. The ones we call negative don't feel like it. And we often try to run from those and do anything to feel happier. And that's what Bob was talking about, that can be a trap rather than looking at the architecture of what's making you feel that way and what you can change in that. We will often run to, oh, I know what'll make me feel better. And that's often something that's not good for us and may even be addictive.
Sure, bring that up.
We were talking about, why do people have affairs? And we've both been in previous marriages where we may have done that. I'm saying
We may
may have
not
done.
we may not have either. We probably were perfect and almost examples of saint-like behavior.
But
Yeah.
thank God we haven't done it in this one. And so you ask, why would you do that when you know it's damaging, and it? A lot of people are going to get hurt, and it's because you want to feel better.
Yeah,
It
because the
it
overwhelming
feels
feeling
so good.
of how good it feels to be loved, cared about, looked at with joy and happiness and adventure so overwhelms the architecture of your life that you simply say, look, I'll deal with the problem later. It'll work itself out. It's
Mhm.
okay. And so we justify a lot of our behavior on the basis of how we feel rather than asking ourselves, am I creating a world in which I can feel good and where feeling good is sustainable? And so, I think often we're after the fix. I was so struck with this years ago when I was looking at standing outside waiting in line with a bunch of other people to ride one of the carnival rides. I think it was a roller coaster. And I realized after the ride that I stood in line doing nothing, being hot, not enjoying myself, so that I could have that 2-minute fix, that high. And I thought this is analogous to our lives in many cases. We often don't allow ourselves to fully engage in our life. So I'll allow myself to live my life when I get home from work. I'll allow myself to engage in a relationship once we get the dishes done, or we've had dinner, or this has been done, or the kids have gone to bed, or this has been fixed. What ends up happening is we have not created the architecture for daily living that works for us. We have just allowed ourselves or somehow fallen into the trap of, this is the world I live in, I have to make the best of it. And then whatever it takes to feel good is what I'll do. And so today's talk is really about not allowing yourself to be trapped by the good feeling or the bad feeling, but to allow yourself to feel what you feel and ask yourself, what is it I need to do in my world that it would run more smoothly? One of the examples I can think of, but one thing that happened to me some time back, is a woman came to one of our centers, our churches, and said to me, I love coming here. And I said, well, why is that? And she said, because I always feel good after I leave. And I said, so what would happen if you left here and you didn't feel good? She said, well, I wouldn't come back. I said, well, what do you think about the lessons that are being taught on the Sunday talk? And she said, I don't know. I don't really,
I never can remember what you
yeah,
said.
yeah. And it's just, but I feel good. And so she came for quite a while, and I asked her a couple of more times the same question, and her same response was, I don't know what you said, but I felt good. And then we didn't see her for close to a month, and I called her and I said, so what happened? She said, I didn't feel good the last time I went. And so the question really is, are we integrating the truth? Are we integrating into our lives the things that we can see and make sense of that work, and listening to our heart that says, yes, this is something worth having. Now, how can we create that? Or how can we create the condition for that to occur? And the same thing would be with regards to negative things. What could I do in my life not to have it be run so negatively. Well, I could change some things, things that I want to change. But part of where I'm coming from with this today, and I think it's important, is we have had a kind of pendulum swing. And I can remember in the 60s and earlier than that, it was all about whatever you think your life straight, think your life good, think your life, think. It's your brain that's running everything and everything else is irrelevant.
And emotions are
Oh my
dangerous,
God, yeah, don't
especially for
feel, just
men.
do what you're supposed to do and you get over whatever you're feeling. Then the pendulum is swung the other way, which is do what your heart says, whatever your heart says. It's if it says jump off of a cliff, it's okay because you got to go with your intuition. There'll be something to catch you at the end of it, and if not, you're a lemon. But the problem with that is that we have, well, the reality is we have a mind and we have a heart that on their best day are working in synchrony. They're working intimately together. But not only that, we also know the gut talks, we know the liver talks, we know that all the organs have conversations with each other, and we're working with a whole system. And the question we need to ask ourselves is how can I create a world in which the conditions of my world, inner and outer, are, are a place I want to live, or is a place I want to live, as opposed to forget all of that. Right now, all I want to do is feel good. I'll have a double.
And I want to address how many spiritual teachings and our religions will often promote the idea that you want to always be at peace and always be content and never feel angry. And oh, God forbid you should be angry or express anger, and never feel sad because you're always connected to the divine. And in fact, I think our teaching may give that idea. And we want to say, we had a class this last week, and the concept brought forward is that even a feeling of hatred, real anger, is a valid feeling that pushes you to do something, to act. And so in that way, it's positive. And um, I actually think that was well, I'm not going to get into politics, but I think that was demonstrated in the last election.
So the
A lot of
distinction that
people
you're
acted that wouldn't have eh, because they were very upset with what they saw.
right, and the distinction that you're making that I think is important is to act, not react.
Correct. Yes, it moves to act. But to push it aside and say, well, I shouldn't feel that feeling because I'm a spiritual person. Or I don't want to feel angry because it doesn't feel good. That they're there for a reason, and they're there for you, not against you. So the lesson this week in our class was that hatred, especially if it's somebody that you have loved, is is actually the love. It's because the love is, you believe the love is being withheld. The love is being withheld from you. And so that's why a child whose parent leaves often can never get over that anger. They hate that parent because of the love they didn't get. Or even in a bad marriage where there's so much anger, it's often because one or both feel like the love that they want and need is being withheld from
Right.
them. So, so if you think of it in that terms, the love actually can hold the hate quite nicely because no emotion lasts.
Right. And
And it's an impetus to correct, as Bob said, to change the architecture of your life so that it works.
I'm going to go back to the first analogy that I used, which is the temperature. And what you could say when you start to feel uncomfortable with the temperature in the room is to say, we need to breathe into this. We need to allow ourselves to embrace it. We need to connect with it. We need to see ourselves as comfortable. And you could spend an hour getting comfortable, or you could get up and change the thermostat. And the question is how much time and energy we're spent doing what we think of as spiritual practice to avoid doing the thing that could actually change our life effectively. But that change could be difficult or uncomfortable or more painful, it seems on the surface, then I will simply endure this, but I'll endure this with a higher mind. I'll endure this with a better attitude. We need to look at the architecture that keeps stirring the attitude so that it becomes a problem and ask ourselves, what changes do I need to make here? That I then can use my or connect to my higher self in a way not to deal with pain, but to embrace joy, to embrace the connection that I have that's built in. So I say we spend too much time doing things to try to feel good and not enough time looking at the architecture of the world we live in that has us continually trying to feel good and or trying not to feel bad. I'm reminded of addiction. When people addictively use a drug, initially it's to feel good. If they use the drug long enough, what ends up happening is they're using the drug not to feel good, just not to feel bad.
Right. And we know that the body creates our own rewarding chemicals. And so that's how we can become addicted to behaviors.
Mhm.
There's a shopping addiction. What are some of the other
There's a
behavior
meditation
addictions?
addiction.
Sex
There's
addiction,
spiritual addiction, a religious addiction.
religion.
There's food
There's
addiction. There's many of which we've tried and worked really hard with and on. But they're easily connected to because we don't do it alone. We do it with other people. You don't go to the bar alone. You don't go to church alone. And in either case, if you feel good afterwards, you need to ask yourself, how did this serve me? And what did I learn from this? And how can I integrate this into my life more meaningfully? As opposed to, well, I go there because that's what I do. And or I feel good for the little time that I'm there.
because the goal is to authentically express your unique individuality.
Mm.
And that means to feel your feelings, to own your feelings, to understand your feelings, and not feel that you have to run from them or say, I shouldn't feel this way. You feel the way you feel, and you couldn't hold on to it if you tried. It will change.
That's a really critical point, is that people are constantly, I think, in search of feeling good as if they could sustain it. You
Right.
can't sustain feeling good and you can't sustain feeling bad. In fact, you can't sustain any feeling. The condition around you will dictate, as a result of your perception of it, the feeling that you're going to have that's going to follow it. And so what we really need to do is to look at what is the thinking that's going on that's creating the feeling that I'm having, and I need to change that. But not without regard for the heart, because the heart and the mind are connected. They're one. A practice I've been working on recently, and I've been really pleased with the result of it. When we hear this thing called, you need to love yourself, love yourself, and you can't love other people until you love yourself. Well, first off, I think that's true, although I think you can start loving other people and learn how you love them to love yourself as much as them, and that would be helpful. But I think another dimension of that is, would you be willing to start saying to yourself, I love my toes, I love my liver, I love my fingers, love my heart, I love my arterial system, I love my kidneys, I love my brain, and actually take the time to feel what that feels like to love all of those and to have them know they're being loved. Often when we say we love ourselves, we mean by that, I'm trying hard to do that. I'm not that satisfied with myself, and there's an awful lot that's broken and an awful lot that needs to get fixed, but I love myself. And I think if we did that, if we said those things to a lover, I really love you, but damn, there's a lot you need to work on. Our lover wouldn't feel loved. They would feel like, yes, but there's conditions. When we say we love ourselves unconditionally, we could actually start from the tip of our head. In my case, it'll be easier because there's not much covering it, down to the tip of our toes, loving each and every part of ourselves until that conversation is so real and so palpable that we actually feel the love.
I wanted to use an example that you shared yesterday, Bob, or this morning, about what happens to emotions when we don't want to admit we have them. When we have anger or fear that we just want to push away, we want to deny that we even have it. He said emotions are like water in a
Mm,
cracked container. They find the leaks. And so what happens is they come out inappropriately
that's a
and
good metaphor.
inappropriate times. It's a great metaphor. You can't, your feelings will out. And so it's really important, even if you're just admitting them to yourself, even if you just journal how that's a way of expressing them and
Yeah.
owning them. And as I say, they won't stay. So even if you're depressed and sad, write it down. Talk about it, think how can you change, as Bob says, the architecture of your life, because you see, your thoughts and your feelings are always building form. And I got a visual of it this morning. You think whatever you're thinking and feeling about is being built like a little scaffolding in the physical. Not enough to manifest yet, not enough to show, But as you continue thinking and feeling that, it becomes more and more
Takes form.
visible, real, it takes form. And so you need to know that you're always creating something.
or
And
or
I
or,
wouldn't want to create
or tearing it down.
or tearing it down. Yeah, the minute you stop thinking that, it starts decomposing.
Or it
It starts
holds and it goes out and does whatever it does, but it can't be added to. So if you have a vision of what you want to have in your life, you need not only to hold the vision, but allow the vision to grow.
and work toward it.
Yes, and, and,
Move your
and the
feet.
actions that you take in favor of that are going to forward it. What I was thinking with water is that water is both uh, formless and relentless, much
Yes,
much like any thought.
yes.
And we live in a condo, and in one of the condos we lived in, there was a water leak on the first floor and leaking through the ceiling. So it was obviously coming from
You
the second.
mean the
This,
fourth floor?
yeah, when it was on the water was leaking in on the first floor.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so they called the plumber, and the plumber went and looked at the second floor, and then the plumber went to the third floor. And they found that on the third floor, there was a leak that had found its way all the way down to the first floor. It had to go across an entire ceiling. It had to go across another couple of pipes. It had to go a tremendous distance, but water has time. Water has all the time that it needs, and it has a relentlessness that thought has to see itself to another place. And so if we think of the water of our mind, of thoughts that are formless until they take form, but then they begin to be reshaped by every other thought we have after that, we're living in this wonderful world where the plasticity is to our advantage and or to our disadvantage, depending on the quality of our thinking or the quality of our architecture.
One of the things that comes up for me when we talk about emotions and feelings is right now Thanksgiving is about 2 weeks away,
Mm.
and our pandemic is at its highest rate ever. I mean, I think the chart I saw is at least almost double what it was at its highest point in March or July. And so here we had just gotten comfortable with being a little more relaxed about going out to restaurants and doing things and being around people and family and stuff. And it's like, and now Thanksgiving's coming up and they're saying, don't, the CDC is saying, do not spend Thanksgiving with people if they're not in your immediate household. Well, that's a really big emotional hit for a lot of people. We have our traditions, we have our loved ones, we like to spend time with that, and what are we to do? And I'm concerned that our need to feel good, our need to do Thanksgiving like we've always done it, is going to interfere with reason about what's reasonable or safe this year. So I just want to share with you something that I heard last night that I think makes sense. If you're going to be with people other than your household, inside, wear a mask while you're inside, and eat outside if you can. And at least you can have a modicum of safety
Mhm.
that way, because I think our need to feel good and do what we always do on Thanksgiving is going to hurt our overall numbers and health.
I hadn't thought about it before this very minute, but the mask thing, the battle between yes or no against the mask is not political. It's heart mind. It's I feel like, and I want to justify how I feel. The hell with it. I mean, the Thanksgiving thing, I can see people saying, "Look, I've done everything I need to do. I can't deal with this. I'll do the best I can, and I'll worry about it tomorrow." So what is that saying? I'll put my head on hold. I know what I know, but I can't know that today. But what's going to run me
Exactly.
today is
Yeah.
how I feel. And at the end of the day, when I don't feel that way anymore, I'll go back and I'll do everything I'm supposed to do, and I'll hope to God nothing bad happens. Actually, I'll hope that God makes sure nothing happens.
Right.
And so I'll get the God fix, and I'll break all the rules, but it'll be okay because I'm feeling it. And so this real battle between when is it an essential time for us to unplug our brain? There's never a time. When is there a good time to unplug our heart? There's never a good time. They both need to work together. So here we are sitting in a family covering our face with what has to do with a disease that can kill people while we want to celebrate. It isn't just taking the mask off to be with other people without our mask. It's wanting to take the disease off, wanting to take this illness away, wanting to feel good without it, wanting it to be out of our world. And the truth is, we have to develop. the ability to have the disease around us and have our mind not be diseased by the fear of it or by the lack of activity in favor of staying well. And that's a little more strenuous. That takes more time and planning.
And yet it's worth it,
Oh my God, yeah. But
yes. Saving our loved ones' lives,
it's
it's worth
always worth it.
it. Yes, it's always worth
You
it.
know, I read, and when I'm reading, sometimes I will get sidetracked in my mind and go off and then notice that after I've been reading for a while that I have lost track of what I'm reading. And so now what I do is I also, if there's an audio book, I will listen to the book and I will also read it. I learned this from Judith, and that reading it keeps my mind focused on it. And here was what happens. I don't just feel good with the information being given to me. I get more of it. I put more into it and I get more of it. And until I'm willing to put more of me into life, why would I expect to get more out of life? There's no such thing as putting yourself on hold, because when you do that, you're unavailable for living. And we can't put ourselves on hold during the pandemic. We can't put ourselves on hold during anything that's going on around us. We have to figure out, how can I be in the world and not have the world undo me because of my lack of engagement rather than just my fear.
Right. So,
We're running out of time. I wanted to make mention today too, and just so you all know that we do this with lots of love and passion and compassion, and we love what we do, and it's not free. It cost us in order to be able to do this, and so we are CSL of the Palm Beaches. We do have a website, and for those of you that would like to donate, your generosity is deeply appreciated. It makes it possible for us to do this. We couldn't do it without you. We wouldn't do it without you, because there's too many other things that are demanding of our life, and your support of us allows us the freedom to have the time to dedicate to the ministry that we have.
well, we wanted to give you some good news too. We
Oh yeah.
got the December issue of
Oh
the
yeah.
Science of Mind magazine, and it does have a full page review.
I think it's on page 104, not that I'm paying attention to it, of the Science of My magazine. And the review,
A December issue,
the December
yeah.
issue, when I read the review of my book, I thought, damn, I wish I'd written
A full
that.
page review of it. So we're excited about that.
Yeah.
And that's the good news, because we weren't sure that was going to happen. So let's close with a
Yeah.
closing affirmative prayer. So let's know that all of our emotions are good emotions and for us. We know the truth of our being is that we are a divine spiritual being having a physical experience, and we choose to experience every single bit of this life of being a human being. And that includes all of our emotions and all of our thoughts and all of our creativity. We accept ourselves, we love ourselves, we're willing to explore, be uncomfortable, and find the messages and the guidance of right action for all of our feelings. We reach out to others for support when we need it. We know that our needs are always met. We give thanks for this. We release, and together we say,
And so it is.
and so it is.
So we're going to end the recording, and we're going to say hello to the people that are out there with us.
Need my glasses.